Good evening and welcome everyone to a new episode in Key to Redemption in Our Hands. This is episode 31 and it is titled, Are You Ready to Greet Mashiach? This is a study in the talk that the Lubavitcher Rebbe gave at the Global Shliach Conference. Everybody knows that there are thousands of Chabad emissaries and shluchim. They're the personal emissaries of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, that he has them sent all across the entire world to do the work of elevating the world, bringing Jews closer to Judaism, spreading Torah, spreading the deep mystical teachings of Chassidus, enlivening and enlightening the world, waking up the Jewish people and even reaching to the Gentile world. People who devote their lives to the one purpose, and that's the devoted to the spreading of holiness and godliness in the world. But as we're going to see now, the Rebbe is going to focus that shlichus, that work towards one point. And that is to prepare the world to greet Moshiach. So let's see. This is really, really phenomenal. The Rebbe instituted that, being that he has this global network. At that time, there were much less than there are today. People who scattered across the world, but there was still a significant amount of shluchim. Today, there's over 5,000 families across the world, but at that time there was probably less than 2,000. I'm not exactly sure, maybe even less than that. And that they would come together once a year so that they gather strength, they plug into their source, and when the Rebbe was physically here, they would come to hear the Rebbe talk to them and give them instructions and inspiration and charge their batteries. Today's days, although we don't physically see the Rebbe, shluchim from the entire world fly into New York from literally global, and it's always the weekend of Shabbos Mevorchim, Chodesh Kislev. It's always the week before Shabbos Kislev, which most of the years comes out Parshas Chayei Sarah. So the last year that the Rebbe himself would address the Shluchim conference. The last year that the Rebbe did it was in 57, 52. Again, 1991. In November, or again, late October or November of 1991. I'm not exactly sure the date. And Shabbos Farbrengen was directed towards this momentous occasion of talking to the Shluchim. Now, these are the Rebbe's foot soldiers and his generals. These are his people that are implementing his desire, his instructions, his wishes across the world in order to move the world to its ultimate goal. In this stunning talk, the Rebbe spells out with such clarity what is the mission of his devoted shluchim, of his emissaries across the world. What is their mission currently? Now, since that time, we haven't had any other instruction, which means this is the instruction that has been from 30 years ago until today. And since Mashiach isn't here yet, probably it would seem that we have to listen and pay attention to this instruction deeper and deeper, not, God forbid, ever giving an excuse why Mashiach isn't here. But if there is another second to wait, we need to focus in on what we were told clearly. What's unique over here is that in all these talks, the Rebbe is talking so much about what the work of the Jewish people needs to be in general. But over here, since he's speaking to focused people who are on the site, his primary agents, if you might say, who are on site doing his work, this is a more pragmatic, down-to-earth instruction. He's giving them marching orders of exactly what needs to do. And what was unique is that unlike other years where there was a continuous inspiration from year to year. Sometimes there were unique instructions, but generally it's kind of the same mission, the same ideas, just presented like this, presented like that, with slight nuances. In this particular year, the Rebbe is opening it up, as we're going to see clearly. He's saying the mission right now is actually changing from what it was before. It's being upgraded and it's being focused, laser focused to one particular thing, as we'll see in a moment. Now, in the talk, although it was officially towards the Global Shluchim Conference, the Rebbe does not limit it to only his inner circle, if you might say, but rather he addresses over here the Jewish people as a whole, because he refers to every single Jewish man or woman and child as an agent of God, as an implementer of the divine will on the mission, but also as the mission, also as the leader of the Jewish people. He sees every single person in the generation as a personal agent of the Rebbe to do work in this world. So he literally is not ashamed to say this. He's appointing every single Jew to actualize the final mission. And he's giving specific instructions of what that final mission is. It's mind-blowing. Now, we have to realize that the last talk that I gave last night, which was a continuation of the previous episode, episode 30, was called Moshiach is Revealed. Something stunning happened in episode 30. For those who didn't listen to it, worth listening to. Listen to all 4 classes. But the real bomb is at the end of the 4th class. Over there, the Rebbe said that we're living right now in the world, in the time, that not only is there a potential Mashiach, but Mashiach is revealed. Obviously, once Mashiach is revealed in the world, the mission that the Jewish people are need to do, and Mashiach is revealed, but the redemption didn't happen yet. So is there anything to do? So over here, or in a sense, we say, okay, now that Mashiach is revealed, it's up to Mashiach to wave his wand and start producing and bringing in the Messianic era. The Rebbe, however, turns to all of us and all of the world and says, Mashiach is revealed, but he needs some help in order to do what he needs to do. And the instructions that he gives over here is what is the help that he is asking. What does he say we need to do? He says we need to now be ready to go greet Mashiach. In other words, there needs to be a connection between the king and the people. So we need to be ready to go greet Mashiach. Or let's put it this way. Our job is now to go greet Mashiach. But to go greet Mashiach, you need to be ready to greet Mashiach. So what's the mission? The mission is going to be that everybody should ready themselves, prepare themselves, do whatever polishing and fixing up we need to do quickly so that we can go and greet Mashiach. And being that we're responsible for the world, especially the shluchim, who are appointed as agents to certain cities and certain places, communities across the world, so that we can reach to all of the Jewish people, and that has always been the Rebbe's idea, to reach all the Jewish people. And as we mentioned earlier, that the Rebbe is now increasing his agency and saying, I'm now drafting everybody of the Jewish people into this mission, is that everybody's responsible to prepare whoever you can reach, that they too should be ready to greet Mashiach. Mashiach does not want to come to the Jewish people and reveal himself to them and find them in a state where they're not ready to see him. So therefore, he wants it to be pleasant and joyful and wonderful and beautiful. And we should all have, because let me tell you one thing, the most powerful memory that's going to live on in our minds probably for all of eternity is going to be the moment Mashiach walks into the room. The moment our eyes will see Mashiach. We will never forget that. Now, the state that we are when that happens is probably very, very important, because this is what's going to live with us forever. So the Rebbe is therefore encouraging, be ready. It can happen any second. Yesterday or 2 days ago, I came across a powerful video. And it's being shown by a news anchor in Israel on one of the stations, where they're showing a little clip. Soldiers are in Gaza now. Many young men, many young women, primarily young men, thousands upon thousands. It is extremely, extremely dangerous. One of these soldiers is inside a tank. He's looking at his phone. I guess it's a moment when there wasn't much action. He's looking on his phone. He's in the tank. He suddenly, you see this. He suddenly turns his head and he looks, and you watch the most beautiful thing happen. He jumps up and runs, grabs hold of another human being. They fall on each other, and you see hugs that is so powerful and so amazed. The face of the young man was like, incredible. What happened? His father was also in the military, decided that he's going to go visit his son in Gaza. Surprise visit. Now, your nerves are really rattled, and you're probably kind of mess when you're out in dangerous territory every moment. You're feeling lost, isolated, and so on and so forth. When your father, who you know loves you and cares about you, and this is your base in your life, walks in, and you see him there, unexpected, the last person you've expected that would be over there. What a powerful moment. So the narrator says, on this clip in television, channel 14, I think it was, the narrator says this. They're all talking about how emotional they are watching this, and the narrator says, "Well, didn't one of the tzaddikim?" And then she says, "I think it was the Lubavitcher Rebbe say, at one time he walked out when the Hasidim were sitting in the shul, and they jumped like they weren't ready, and the Rebbe said, well, this is exactly what it will look like when Moshiach will come. He will just walk in." So this is going to happen momentarily. Moshiach will walk in. Now, it's interesting. It's a Mashiach that was revealed already, which we discussed in last class. If you want to hear about that, listen to that. But now, currently, he's behind the curtain. He's not here because the next time he appears, he's appearing with a full and blown and complete redemption. So the Rebbe over here is telling us, I'm a personal emissary, thousands of other personal emissaries, and there are, as we said earlier, whether people understand it or don't understand it, the Rebbe is the soul of all souls, and therefore when he speaks with authority to the Jewish people. It's becoming more and more clear to the Jewish world that the one leader who always is right, and every single time he proves himself as right, as correct, as the true leader of the Jewish people, it's becoming more and more visible to any honest human being. During the time when Israel was in conflict in the past, there were many times where many people felt that trying to make peace with the Palestinians, with those who want Jewish land, felt that would be the right thing to do, even at the cost of relinquishing land that God has given to us. The Rebbe cried and cried and begged and cried and begged and cried his heart out for years, screaming about the danger that is going to happen, the danger that will bring, and what that is going to bring, a catastrophe on the Jewish people. And he described, as much as he avoided saying negative things, he was speaking about the possibility of a danger, literally what happened on October 7th. And at that time, even great Torah scholars, many of them didn't agree with him. Many of them thought differently. Many of them supported Oslo, supported Camp David, supported all these atrocious deals that left the Jewish people with so much blood and so much suffering. Now the Jewish people are waking up. Now all of Israel is waking up. Even most of the politicians are waking up. And they're realizing what a horrific mistake is. And everybody says one thing: Rabbi tzodek, the rebbe was right. So we see he's right, but it's not only that. The rebbe said and insisted against all the leaders of the Jewish people that there's no such a thing as secular Jews. Every Jew is connected to God with a powerful bond. The secularism is only an external shell of the true Jewish heart. Now, it's a concept that's stated already earlier in many Jewish books, especially in the books of Hasidism. But even though it's stated, it was always stated as a more abstract idea. It was never seen as something to be implemented as much in the practical. When the Rebbe began reaching out to Jews and getting them to do mitzvahs, even without radically transforming their life, saying, you're Jewish, do a mitzvah because you love God and you're really connected. So do a mitzvah which is expressing your deepest self, even if right now you're not even in touch with that deepest self. Do a mitzvah one time. Many people, rabbis, groups of Jews, thought it's one thing if the person, if you convince someone and you transform them, then you made them kind of Jewish, you made them connected. But if the person is secular and they claim to be secular, believe them that they're secular. The Rebbe said, you're not going to sell me that any Jew is secular. Every Jew is holy. Every Jew is connected to God on the deepest level. What are we seeing now? Check out what's happening in Israel. Check out what the radical transformation that is happening on the very same people that for the entire last year stood on the streets in Israel and were protesting against religious coercion and protesting against judicial reform because maybe certain religious things are going to be implemented in the country. God forbid Israel should go and accept halachic law. They were fighting it with tooth and nail. These extreme leftist people are lining up to put on tefillin. They're lining up to wear tzitzis. Many of them, I read the most beautiful story. A guy says, I read the story. The guy said, I hated the fact that I was a Jew. I never mentioned it. When people ask me if I'm Jewish, I would say, I'm Israeli, and I was born Jewish, but I am this. I don't identify as Jewish. This was what he said. He said, after October 7th, I got woken up, especially when I saw how the world turned their back after Israel was attacked, massacred brutally in the most horrific way, pure, ugly, monstrous acts. And when I saw the world justify that, millions of people justifying this and marching for the murderers, that's what provoked the Jew inside of me. I deeply identify. The guy's covered in tattoos. For those who need to know, it is forbidden to have a tattoo in Judaism. It's one of the biblical commandments. This guy is literally covered. He's dressed, but you can see the tattoos coming out from everywhere. And this guy is talking about this thing. I'm sorry. This was another person. One guy with tattoos. The other person, I read two. One was, they showed a video of one person saying, similar idea. The other one is written. But in any case, this guy says, I've got his name's Omer something. He says, you know what? Today, I gathered my children together. We lit candles. I didn't even know what blessing you say on the candles. So I lit and I said the Hanukkah blessings. This guy just wants to connect to God. He doesn't even know how. The only blessing he knows is the Hanukkah blessing. So he made those. But I can tell you that lighting of those candles with his children reached the heavens of the heavens. God on the deepest of the deep, because it's a Jewish soul yearning to reconnect. What happened? The external facades broke. The idea that Jews can be the same like the nations and the nations will accept them suddenly fell and crumbled. But who was saying this? Who stated this? Who was the one who implemented this entire tshuva movement? Anybody who still wants to lie and claim anybody else did it, continue lying. It's not going to help you anymore. It was one person, and it is one person, and that's the Lubavitcher Rebbe. And I'm just showing you 1, 2. The Rebbe is never wrong because the Rebbe is God's microphone in this world. Because the Rebbe is the Lubavitcher Rebbeim going from the Baal Shem Tov all the way down. They were God's and remain God's channel of divinity to the world. They're the innermost channel of godly light to the world. Their words are holy of the holy. And therefore, what am I saying? When the Rebbe speaks and he says, Moshiach is revealed, please go out, give this message to the world, prepare the world, teach the world. How do you get ready for Mashiach if you know nothing about Mashiach? Mashiach can be very intimidating. It can be scary. It's obviously going to be a radically different kind of a life. What is it? Who is Mashiach himself? It's a monarchy coming back. Why would I want a monarchy? A lot of questions, a lot of fears. So the Rebbe told his shluchim, and amongst them, he appointed all the Jewish people as his shluchim. We should teach each other. And in this talk, the Rebbe is basically going to develop that that's our final work that we need to do. When the Jewish people are ready to greet Mashiach, then Mashiach, who has already been revealed, will actually come out to them, greet them, and activate the redemption for the entire world. This is the talk where the Rebbe is going to develop this. So we need to listen really carefully to what he says. It's deep, it's powerful, and it's completely transformational. Let's start. It's going to take us 3 or 4 classes to get through it. It gets a little technical. It's just absolutely amazing. So we come along for the journey. And remember, Chabad Hasidism is not something you take in a one-liner. It's transformational. So you have to take the concepts, you have to let it sit in your head, you have to absorb it, see what is being said. So the Rebbe opens up this talk on Shabbat Parshas Chayesara in 1991 by saying as follows. Being that we are standing now at the beginning and at the opening of the global conference of Shluchim, of emissaries, which emissaries, who are these agents of? The emissaries of my saintly father-in-law, who is the leader of the entire generation. And these are the emissaries that are spread out across the entire globe, and they've come from the 4 corners of the earth. The first thing that needs to be mentioned as the foundation and to express the purpose, or the mission, rather, of the shluchim, of the emissaries in our generation in general. In other words, your emissaries, you need to know what is the direction, what is our mission of our generation as a whole, but particularly an upgrade, something that has now changed, something that has now changed over the last period of time. He's talking about what he's going to say right now is something that just happened recently. This is news. Until now, you did not have this work, but because the facts on the ground are different, something changed in the world. This requires an adjustment to the entire shlichus apparatus. The entire program and the work needs to be adjusted to the current state of affairs. What is that? What is that needs to be? What is the shlichus? What is the focus? It's to greet the face of Mashiach, which means to go and greet the righteous Mashiach as he brings us the full and complete redemption, the true and complete redemption. To go out and greet Mashiach as Mashiach is bringing us into the world the redemption. So that means that Mashiach's bringing to the world the redemption is not just a solo experience that he does. He does it, and there is a recipiency from the world, but primarily from the Jewish people. The Jewish people need to come out to greet him. Now, as spoken many times, he continues that there is, that in addition to the general focus of our shlichus, of our mission, which is part and parcel of the mission that, whose mission is it? That God bestows upon each and every, on every single one of us. Every single soul is God's emissary, is God's agent. Every soul is God's agent to fulfill the divine will. And therefore we say that our existence in this world has no other purpose but to fulfill what God sent us down here to do. We're not of earth. It's very important to remember this. We're not of earth. We're sent down to earth on a mission. And what's that mission? I am, as the Talmud says in Tractate Kedushin, I was created to serve my Creator. So we were created to serve God. Now that's the general mission. The general mission is to serve God's interest. That's general. Now, it's general to every single person. Specifically, those people who focus very much on the mission because they were selected somehow. God gave these souls a particular extra oomph to be not just emissaries on the broader scale, but a little more specific. That the leader of the generation has chosen them to join his inside army. Like, in different armies, or in different, there's a larger army, like in Iran. I don't want to, God should protect us. They have the regular army, and then what they call the Republican Guard. These are like the inner, like the Navy SEALs. So in the same as in terms of souls, our souls, every soul is here as an agent, as in a mission. But those who carry the title Shaliach, which means a particularly people that live their lives cognizant every second of the mission that they're sent to a certain community or to a certain part of the world to increase godly awareness, godly activity, observance in a particular place. So these are the shluchim of the leader of the generation. So in addition to the fact that there is a common goal, which can be said about every time you're here on a divine mission, but within the divine mission, there are nuances. So from time to time, the Rebbe says, the mission gets defined, and sometimes gets upgraded and gets focused into something particular. Something particular. For example, I'll give you a little example. The Rebbe Shluchim, when he sent them out, it was primarily to reach every Jew and get Jews to do mitzvahs, to generally bring them closer to Judaism, but like the focus was, as many Jews as you can, get them to do mitzvahs, get them to put on tefillin, get the women to light Shabbos candles, get them to eat kosher, get them. So he got a mission. There was a certain time that the Rebbe wanted that every single Jewish child should be enlisted with a letter in a Torah scroll written on his or her behalf. So he instructed the shluchim to really get busy with that. So the shluchim dropped many other things that they were doing, and instead focused on the particular aspect of getting children to have a letter in the Torah. So that became more narrow and more specific. So from time to time, there is a more specified mission, and that is the focus until we are told that we have to move on to something else, right? Now, it's very interesting, when we are given, the Rebbe says, a particular directive in which the generation is told that for whatever reason, right now it's important that this should be your focus. Right now, this is very important. This should be the focus. It doesn't mean we drop everything else in Judaism. It doesn't mean that if I have to enlist people to get a letter in the Torah, we stop praying 3 times a day. Or we don't study Torah because we have no time because we have to get children to. No. We study Torah. We pray 3 times a day. We're still give charity and take care of the needy and do everything else. But there's a specific focus on that particular thing. In other words, our mind is directed with a sharper focus on that particular thing. Now, when that happens, we have to realize, when we're given something specific, that it's not only that should be important to us, but rather everything else in our overall mission, in our divine mission, everything else gets connected to God, gets uplifted and elevated up into the higher realms and to connect to God through that passageway. It's a very interesting idea. So he calls it a shar, a gateway. There is a gateway. The gateway is the specific gateway in which you are now requested to do a particular thing. So all the channels that you used to have to connect are not directly connected. They're all connected to the particular work that you are asked to do now. So it's a very phenomenal idea. So he brings on the bottom, in the footnote, he brings sources. I looked up the source. So that he brings from the previous Chabad rebbe in his talks. So there's a beautiful description over there, how every soul is sent down to the world on a mission. Similar idea that we're learning over here. Every soul is an emissary of God. Yet, each soul has, even though all souls have a general mission to serve their Creator, but each soul has a particular mission. That's one particular thing in particular that God sent you down into this world. It might be one mitzvah. Maybe were sent into the world particularly to be a big philanthropist. And that doesn't mean that you don't study Torah, you don't do all the other mitzvot, you have to do everything. But since your soul was sent down in the world for philanthropy, for charitable acts, all your mitzvahs are then channeled, the channel which uplifts all your mitzvahs and elevates them to God is through your charity. Another person whose main mission in this world is to pray to God with heartfelt prayer. And that's the mission. It's a unique soul that has a very deep heart and can experience deep connection to God in prayer. And that's why God sent this soul into the world to attach and to become unified with him through prayer. Like the difference, for example, between Abraham and Isaac. Avram's primary service was kindness. Yitzchak's primary service was prayer. So even though Isaac and the souls that are like Isaac are also supposed to do charity, but their charity is elevated to God through the pathway of prayer. And so it is with each individual soul. So the Rebbe is now saying that's the case. That also applies to a generation. From generation and within generation, certain times in the generation, where the leader of the generation, who is in communication with God, knows from his attachment, from the communication that is given to him from above, what the generation is supposed to be doing at any given time. When that instruction is given, it means that we lessen our focus on other stuff. We intensify our focus on this particular thing, and everything else that we're doing is now flowing through this particular channel. So this, the Rebbe says, we've spoken about at other times, that there is a general mission, and then there is the honing in on something particular within the general mission. So he says, similar to that, I am telling you that right now, I'm honing everybody into one particular thing, and that is to prepare the world for the coming of Mashiach. But this part, what I'm focusing you now on, is not. I'm not focusing the generation on something, a detail. Sometimes you have to focus the generation on a detail because there's one particular detail that has not been finished that we need to take care of. So we focus the generation, although we focused like the main energy of the generation to that particular detail, but it's still a detail. But what I am focusing you now on, the Rebbe says, is not just a detail. It's actually, I'm focusing you on the most all-inclusive, most general and foundational foundation, the base of the base of all of Judaism. But I'm going to focus you, sometimes we're not focused on that foundation, and now we're going to focus all our energies on that particular element, which is not particular, it's the all-inclusive purpose of all of existence. And what is that? It's the coming of Mashiach, because all of Judaism and all of Torah and the creation of the world was for the purpose of the Messianic revelation. And therefore, since we are now going to direct everybody towards the particular work of preparing ourselves for Mashiach, this is a very serious matter that we need to give it all of our attention. To a little bit paraphrase, perhaps, what the Rebbe is saying, although all of Judaism, from the very, very beginning of time, everything that ever happened from Abraham, Avram Avinu being told by God to leave Mesopotamia and go to the land of Israel, to Avram's circumcision, to the binding of Isaac, to the giving of the work of Isaac and Jacob, and then the tribes, and going down to Egypt, and the Exodus, and the giving of the Torah, and the first temple, and the second temple, and King David, and King Solomon, and the Amshei Knesset Agdola, the men of the Great Assembly, and the author, and the bringing, and the writing down of the entire Torah, the oral Torah, the Mishnah, the Talmud, the Zohar, everything, and all the sacrifices and all the persecutions and everything that Israel and the Jewish people have been through for thousands of years, and all the monumental tasks, everything was always about coming to Mashiach. Yet, the people that were doing them were not fully cognizant and conscious that they're bringing Mashiach, because it was still, although it was the foundation, it didn't have to be the primary awareness, because you were busy with the components that are still preliminary and very preliminary to the coming of Mashiach. We were still far away from the final chapter. But now the Rebbe says, since we've completed the work, and actually Mashiach is already here, standing by the door, waiting to come out, and he's already peeked through the curtain and showed us his face and said, hello, I am here. He realizes that the audience isn't ready. God forbid, the audience isn't ready. So therefore, the Rebbe calls the Shluchim and he says, Gewalt, Mashiach wants to walk in. He's ready to come, but he needs the proper reception. So please listen to me. I'm directing you right now. Drop whatever you're doing. Focus your energy on teaching the entire world that Mashiach is about to come. Teach them what Mashiach is. And as we're going to see in the end of this course, continue learning Torah, continue doing mitzvot, continue giving Torah classes, continue gathering Jews, doing everything you do, but every single action you do with the Jewish people should be enthused and infused and saturated with the recognition that you are about to greet Mashiach. And how is this action preparing you and me and all of us to greet Mashiach? That's our final work that we need to do. And as he says over here, and now let me read the actual words. And he says, as we have spoken many times, and particularly in the last months and in the last weeks, that according to what our sages said, that we've already completed all the end dates. All the end dates have passed us. And my father-in-law, the previous rebbe, the leader of the generation. And again, remember what we discussed in last class. The rebbe keeps on cross-referencing his father-in-law with himself. The two are intertwined, and I can give an entire Kabbalistic class on this, why the two are intertwined and inseparable. But that's the way it is, because they represent the dynamics, just briefly, of Yisod and Malchus has to be connected with Yisod, or else it has no power. So therefore, the two are interlocked like Siamese twins, connected and absolute together. So when the Rebbe says, my father-in-law says, he means my father-in-law and myself. And what has been stated, that we've already done tshuva, because the sages said, the statement of the sages is, back in the time of the Talmud, that the end dates have passed, but now it's only dependent on tshuva. So the Rebbe is saying, well, now we've done tshuva already. The repentance has already passed us. Not only that, we finished all the little details of the work, even polishing the buttons. As discussed in earlier classes, the previous Rebbe said the last thing a soldier does after everything, his uniform is all ready, it's pressed, it's ready, he looks all spick and span, looks really, really sharp. Last thing, boots are polished, everything's ready, is that you take a look and you see the brass buttons need a little bit of a shine, so you give it a little polish. And now it's all finished. The previous Rebbe said already in his days, in the 1940s, we finished everything, but we still need to polish the buttons. Small little fragments that we need to finish. The Rebbe says we finished that already. Okay, the Rebbe's talking 1990. So how long does it take to polish the buttons? We're talking about the buttons of a uniform that took 2,000 years to sew. So okay, the buttons can take a little while, but it's 40 years. So now we're already finished with that. And what's happening now? We are now ready to go greet Mashiach. So what is the service? And what is our mission right now? What's our mission right now? To be literally ready to greet our righteous Mashiach in the literal sense. So hold it. If all the work was done, what do you mean we need to now greet? There's still work to be done. We finished everything. We're all ready. But there's still work that we need to do. What's the work? And therefore, what's the responsibility that is given to the emissaries? And again, each and every one of us as an emissary, whether we're enlisted as an emissary or not, what's our job is to be actively prepared to come greet Mashiach. Well, hold it. Isn't that what we've been doing all along, preparing the world to be ready to receive Mashiach? And the answer is, by way of analogy, a king has a desired piece of land that he very, very much sees as a potential to be his new capital. But the place is a mess and the place is undeveloped. He sends his servants, he sends a whole army of people, engineers and architects and construction workers and city builders and whatever you can imagine, to turn a barren land into a metropolitan and a beautiful place. It should be, Dubai, in the middle of the desert. It's a project. It's a 30-year project. And they go and he gives them all the resources and they build and they do 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 and they do. And finally, the roads are built, the infrastructure is laid, the buildings are made, everything. The subway is built, their transportation, the airport, everything is finished. The landscaping, place is like just out of this world gorgeous and ready. The palace is also built. Now what's the point? The king is going to move. So they notify the king to finish. The king sends out people to inspect, and the king says, done, ready. The king sends a message and he says, I'm coming. So now the people, what do they have to do? Prepare to greet the king who's coming. Now, is that the same kind of preparation? Before, of course, what was the point of building the whole city and doing all the work? was that the city should be ready and then the king should be able to move in. But you were still working with the laying the work that is necessary, that the place should be ready for the king to come. But this is a whole different work. Right now, what's the work going to entail? You're actually getting ready. People are dressing up, making sure they have the right clothing that is fitting to come greet the king. They're preparing marching bands. They're speaking to all the various different event coordinators, and they're having meetings after meetings to make it the most exquisite, incredible entry ever. Everybody should be ready and everybody should applaud with marching bands and with the most beautiful decorative floats and banners. Like you ever see the Rose Parade over here? What kind of crazy work goes in of artistic work of making all these floats from all the roses that they have in Pasadena, whatever they do at the. I one time went to see the floats after the day. Amazing what kind of work. And this is what they're going to prepare. It's a whole different type of a work because you're directly involved in preparing yourself to greet the king. And that's basically what the rebbe is saying over here. Guys, the regular work that we needed to do in Torah and mitzvot to prepare the world to be the home for God who's going to come to the world through Mashiach, that work, we've completed that work. Done. Now, just get ready for the parade. If people don't have no idea what Mashiach is, they don't know how to dress. Like what's appropriate? You come out casual, you come out dressed in your finest. Is it a black tie affair? What's the situation? How do you prepare? What is he going to be looking for, Mashiach? Well, it depends who Mashiach is and what he stands for. So you need to teach the world so that we can prepare and make that parade. This is what the Rebbe is teaching and telling his shluchim. Pretty awesome. Pretty awesome. Now we have to ask ourselves, the Rebbe spoke 32 years ago. Did we do this? Did we really do this? Did every Chabad rabbi across the world go to their communities and tell them Mashiach is about to come? And again, after this amazing talk, the king slipped away. You know why? He has nothing else to do until the party is ready, till the parade is ready. So he's out of sight. Some people thought that since the king is out of sight, means that we cancel the party. And if we cancel the party, because the king is not coming, so what should we do? You know what? Let's continue improving the city, making it better and making more landscaping and more stuff, and maybe expand a little and make higher buildings and do more and more and more, because you know what? The king is not coming soon because no one to be seen. And maybe one day another king will come. And then this will be the palace to the eyes of the other king. And the king is saying, what are you talking about? I told you what to do. I'm not here because I have no business being here until you get the party ready. I want to see the parades and the floats ready. Let's get it ready. Oh boy, do we have to do a serious accounting, each and every one of us. Last 32 years. How much did we teach and teach? And mentally and psychologically prepared ourselves for the moment we will turn our eyes like this and suddenly the king is there. We're going to feel a little dirty, a little ugly, a little silly, a little guilty, and we would say, oh, if only I would have known and done the internal work to cleanse, to purify. Only I would have known. I would have decorated my own life with more mitzvot, with more things, just to look a little more like a mensch, to go see Mashiach. Oh my God, my neighbors, my community. I forgot to actually change the entire course of everything I've been teaching. and say, hey, we put everything aside. Moshiach is about to come. We need to teach everybody how to prepare for Mashiach. The good news is it's not too late. If we haven't been doing it, let's start today, because he might just pop up today. From the way things are looking in the world, it's not going to take him too long to walk onto the arena. He is coming. And as I said in the beginning, like the Rebbe said when he walked in on the Hasidim, he said, you see what happened right now? I walked in on you and you weren't ready and you were so discombobulated. That's exactly what it's going to look like when Mashiach comes. Ready or not, here I come. So won't it be so much nicer if we are really ready? And if we're not embarrassed that we didn't share with the people that are relying on us, that we should share that information with them. We're not embarrassed that we held back the information because we started having doubts in the validity of the instruction. Because we started questioning maybe king. We once stood there crying, long live the king, Mashiach. We stood with thousands of Jews crying our hearts out, declaring it with a fervor, with a fire. Long live our king, master, teacher and master, King Mashiach, forever and ever. For an entire year, we stood together, thousands of people. And the Lubavitcher Rebbe sat on a porch, sadly after a stroke, shaking his head. His mind was fully cognizant, shaking his head and encouraging this incredible statement to him. He stood and shook his head again and again and again and again and again and encouraged it for an entire year. Then the curtains closed. It got dark in the world. Did we perhaps rethink that maybe we made a mistake? Maybe the king is not the king? Maybe we can just erase, God forbid, the entire 12 months of his teachings and say, I don't know, probably didn't mean it or wanted otherwise, although God speaks through the prophet. I really don't know what to say more. This is serious. It's not too late because there's no change in the plans. There is no change in the plans. Those who listen to me all the time know I'm telling you the truth. I'm not selling you telling you the truth. I'm telling you the absolute truth. You won't hear this on too many channels, but I'm telling you the absolute truth. The Rebbe spoke everything, and whatever he said is absolute truth. He warned the world before the Yom Kippur War, which was 50 years ago, when everybody was terrified. When everybody was caught by surprise. The Rebbe was warning an entire summer before that to gather the children because we have to stop the enemy for an entire 7 months before, when no one had a clue what was going on. The Rebbe was making the Chabad world crazy and reaching and telling us to reach everywhere, get the children because something, they have to fight the enemy. And then the surprise attack happened. Before the 6-day war, when everybody was predicting doom and gloom for the Jewish people, we were surrounded. I forgot already how many armies attacked. 7, 8 armies attacked in one shot, small little Israel. The Rebbe stood and spoke like a clear word of God. The word of prophet said, Israel will experience the highest level of miracles and victory. The Rebbe never is wrong and always spoke the absolute truth. Did not tell us stories if it's not the absolute truth. So this is not, I'm talking to myself because I know I do speak about Mashiach a lot. And probably this is my primary topic in the last 7 years. But for 20 years, I was also in a deep slumber, impacted by the darkness and the concealment. And even after this 20 years, or whatever, 25 years, even after that time, I speak and I speak, but do I really take it serious? Is it real to me in my own personal life, like to really, really, really be ready? Nowhere close. He walks through the door right now. Boy, oh boy, I'm running for the hills. I'm not ready to greet him. But the Rebbe told us to be ready. And he told the Jewish people to be ready. Wow. I think I'm going to conclude over here for now, even though this is like way less than I thought I'm going to teach. But I think this should stand on its own. May Hashem help that in 1 second, we can be ready. That's the truth. Because the Jewish people can transform in 1 second. I wish every Chabad Shaliach, I wish every Chabad rabbi listens to this class. And I wish it spreads to the Jewish people as a whole. This is truth. A lot of people weren't comfortable in speaking this truth. Because during the days of the intense concealment, the truth wasn't popular. So people were intimidated, afraid, embarrassed, uncomfortable. But how long? How long? There's a certain point that we got to sober up. And we have to grow up. Hashem help us that this comes. Now, I'm actually traveling tomorrow to the gathering of the shluchim that are of the emissaries in New York. And hopefully when I get there, we'll be already all dancing together with Mashiach. Wow. Okay. Mashiach now.